Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making crochet bag charms. Bag charms are such a cute and simple accessory and can make any bag a million times cuter. These are very easy to make and you can attach them onto any item you choose without any fancy hardware. For this project, you're going to need a light weight 4 cotton yarn, a 4mm crochet hook, a darning needle, pair of scissors, and then beads, gems, and decorative yarns are all optional, as well as a rocking playlist. This tutorial won't have any background music, so you can play your favorite songs as you work on your project. I don't know about you, but I love to crochet with a good song or movie in the background. Don't worry, you will hear my lovely voice, just no background music. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Now let's go ahead and get into our first tutorial. First, make a magic circle. In your magic circle, put 5 single crochets. Pull on the tail end of your magic circle to close your circle and slip stitch into the very first single crochet of your round. Next, you're going to chain 8. Skip the very first chain and in the second do 1 single crochet. Then into each of your remaining chains, which you should have 6, you're going to go ahead and put 1 single crochet. After you've done 7 single crochets, into the next stitch here, you are going to slip stitch and then chain 8. And then like we did here, we are going to do the same on this one. So skip the first chain and into the next chain as well as every other chain down your row. Go ahead and put 1 single crochet. Once again, once you've made it to the base of your work, you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the very next stitch and then chain 8. Then you're going to skip the first chain and do 7 single crochets, working your way back to the base. And you're going to do this until you have 5 of these little extension pieces on your work. Okay, I've just completed my 5th arm to my little starfish. So I'm going ahead and I'm slip stitching into the 5th little stitch that I had in my initial round, and then you're going to chain 1. Now on one side you'll see we have like clear stitches to work into. The other side looks a little wonky because we are going to be working into the other side of our initial chain of 8. So in the very first little side half kind of a stitch looking place that you see, you're going to do 1/2 double crochet. And then you're going to repeat that into the next 2 stitches. Then in your remaining 4 stitches that will bring us to the end of our work, you're going to do 4 single crochets. Once you've made it to the end of your row, you're going to go ahead and chain 2. Turn your work to the other side. And this side should be a little bit easier for you guys because we have clear stitches that we can work into. You're going to go ahead and do a single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And then into the remaining 3 stitches, you're going to do 1/2 double crochet into each. Now at the base of your work, you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into that base. And then we're going to start working on the next leg of our starfish. So we're going to do the exact same thing that we did for this leg here. So you're going to do into each of the next 3 stitches, 1/2 double crochet. And then into the remaining 4, you're going to do 1 single crochet. When you get to the end, chain 2, turn your work along the other side. Into the next 4 stitches, do 1 single crochet, and then last 3, get a half double crochet each. And then always remember, when you come back to base, go ahead and slip stitch into this base end right here before going into the next leg. So go ahead and repeat that until you have all of your legs done and you've made it back to your starting point. All right, I've done all 5 legs of my starfish, and now I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into this very first stitch that I see of this round. Then I'm going to chain 1, pull that nice and taut, and then I'm going to cut my yarn, pull that through, and I'm going to weave in my tail ends. Then you're going to repeat this process all over again, but once you get to the end of your work after you've slip stitched, you're going to go ahead and you're going to pull a really long chain, just like this. So for one side of your starfish, you're going to have all of your ends woven in. On your other end of your starfish, you're going to weave in the one that was closest to the round, but the one that you end off with, make a long chain that you're going to cut off, because then what you're going to do is you're going to line up the back sides of your starfishes together, and we're going to turn them into one. So what I'm going to do now is we have the same amount of stitches on each and every last one of our legs. So I'm just going to pull my yarn through the other end or to the other piece of my project. And then I'm just going to make sure that I go into each stitch on both sides. So into this very first stitch here on this end, and then here's the very first one on this end. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to slip stitch these 2 together. And I'm going to do this all the way around the perimeter of my work. And that's going to connect my 2 pieces together and make for a much thicker and, I don't know, just a better looking starfish. So go ahead and do that all the way around the length of your work. Once again, you're going through both ends. So I'll go reaching into this stitch on this side and then look for the same stitch on the other panel and then slip stitch them together. And go ahead and just do that all the way around your 5 little legs to your starfish. All right, once you have slip stitched all the way around your piece, you now have a very nice, pretty, and sturdy starfish. And now we're going to go ahead and just keep working with our yarn, and you're going to make a long chain. And this is going to be what you use to secure your piece onto different bags and, you know, whatever else you would like to attach your little starfish charm onto. Okay, once you have your chain, it can be however long you want it to be. Mine looks like it's approximately 13 inches long. However long you want to make yours, that's up to you. But once it's the length that you're satisfied with, you're going to go ahead back in towards the base of your work where you just left off of and you built that chain from. And you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into one of those little stitches that you're able to get into. Then from there you can chain 1 and then you can cut your yarn. Once you've done that, then all you have to do is go ahead and weave this tail end in, and then your very first bag charm is all done. So to make your fish, first you're going to make a magic circle. Then you're going to put 6 single crochets into your magic circle. Then you can pull your tail end to close up your magic circle, and then you're going to slip stitch into the very first single crochet of this round. Chain 1. And then going into round 2, we're going to start off by doing an increase into the same stitch that we just did our slip stitch into. So to do an increase, you're just going to do 2 single crochets into that same stitch. Then in the next stitch, you're going to do 1 single crochet. In the stitch after that, you'll do another increase. So that's 2 single crochets into the same stitch. Next stitch gets 1 single crochet. Following stitch gets an increase. Next stitch gets 1 single crochet. After that, you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the very first single crochet of that round, and then we'll move into our next round. Now going into our next round, you're going to start off with a chain of 1, and you're going to do an increase in the same stitch that you just did your slip stitch into. And when you do your very first single crochet of this round, if it is helpful for you, you can go ahead and put a stitch marker on this first stitch here. But let me go ahead and do the second single crochet in that same stitch because this is an increase. And then into the next 2 stitches, we're just going to do 1 single crochet. So 1 and 2. And then in the next stitch, the third stitch, you're going to do another increase. So that's 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Then for the next 2 stitches, just do 1 single crochet each. And in the stitch that follows, you do an increase. Okay, we've almost made our way back to our starting point. We have 2 stitches left, and each of these stitches is going to get just 1 single crochet. Then slip stitch into the top of this stitch, or of the very first single crochet of this round, and then we'll get ready to move into our next round. Okay, so for the next 3 rounds that we're going to do it exactly the same as how we have done our previous round. So I'll do the next one with you, and then I will leave you to do the next 2 rounds on your own, and I will show you how the steps or increases build up from there. But so moving into our 3rd round, you're going to chain 1, work an increase into the same stitch that we just slip stitched into. And then in our previous round, we did 2 single crochets before we got to our next increase. Well, this time we're going to do 3 single crochets before we get to our next increase. So into each of these next 3 stitches, do 1 single crochet. In the 4th stitch, you're going to do your next increase. So that's 2 single crochets together. And then just keep repeating the pattern all the way around this round. You'll slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet of this round, chain 1, work your way into the next round. Start off the next round with an increase, and then you'll do 4 single crochets and then an increase all the way around, and then you'll do 1 more round, increase, and then 5 single crochets. So go ahead and work up these 3 extra rounds, and then I'll meet back with you guys once that's done. All right, so I just finished off my last increasing round, and as you can see, the work is starting to turn into like a cone. And for reference, the last increasing round was doing 5 single crochets and then an increase. So after you finish that, you're gonna once again go ahead and slip stitch into the very first single crochet from that round, chain 1, and then in the same stitch, do 1 single crochet. And you're going to go ahead and do 1 single crochet into every stitch in this round, slip stitch into the top of the very first single crochet of this round, and then move into the next round. We're going to do 3 rounds of just 1 single crochet into each stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do those, and then I'll meet back with you guys once that's done. Okay, so I just made it to the end of that 3rd round of just regular single crochets, no increases. So I'm going to slip stitch into the top of this first single crochet, and then I'm going to flip my work. And when I flip my work, I'm going to tuck in this tail end so I don't have to worry about weaving it in or anything. Now you're going to make sure your work is folded nicely in half, and then you're going to chain 3. And you're going to slip stitch into that same stitch that you just did your chain 3 from off of. And this is one of our little fins. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to go into the next stitch, and then you're also going to find the stitch on the other side of your work that kind of like sits across from it. And you're going to slip stitch into those 2 stitches. And we're just closing up this hole here. So go ahead and slip stitch into the next 2 stitches on either end of your project, and you're going to slip stitch them together closed, and you're going to do this all the way down the length of your work. Once you've slip stitched into the last stitch, you're going to do another chain of 3. And then you're going to slip stitch back into the base of your work. Now that's the other side of our second fin. Then you're going to go ahead and work up a long chain. This chain can be however long you want it to be. You just want to make it long enough that you're satisfied with how far down your little fish like dangles from off of your bag or whatever it is that you decide to attach this onto. Once you're satisfied with the length of your chain, you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the base of your project. Now your loop should be secured and you can chain 1 and cut your yarn. Pull that nice and tight, and then what you can do is you can use your crochet hook to go in between the 2 ends or 2 sides of your work, and what you can do is you can feed in this tail end to the inside of your project to hide it. Then you can go back and just cut off the excess. So this is what our little fish looks like so far. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and find one of these stitches. It doesn't really matter which one you go into, but find one of the stitches closer to the middle of your work. And you're going to take your yarn once again, and you're going to attach your yarn onto your project. Then you're going to go ahead and chain 3. Then in the same stitch that we connected our work or connected our yarn back onto, you're going to do 2 treble crochets. So to do a treble, you're going to yarn over 2 times, reach back into that same stitch that we attached our yarn onto, and you are going through both ends of your work, just so you know. And then you're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then you're going to do that again. So yarn over 2 times, go back into that same stitch, yarn over, and you pull up a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So now you have 1 chain of 3 and then 2 treble crochets into that 1 stitch. Then we're going to work our way to the next stitch over, and we're going to do 1 treble crochet in here. Then we're going to do 1 double crochet, so you'll just yarn over 1 time and then double crochet into that same stitch. Then what you're going to do is you're going to slip stitch into the side of your double crochet, and then you'll slip stitch into the same stitch that we've been doing our treble and double crochet from. Then from there you can chain 1 and cut your yarn, pull that nice and tight, and then once again for these 2 tail ends that we have, go ahead and feed them through the center part of your fish and then cut off the excess that sticks out. So that is the shell of your fish. So from here you can decorate your fish however you so choose. You can use beads for the eyes. You can add stripes onto them by doing top stitches, or even when you were working your way through your round, you could just do color changes to give them stripes. You know, the choice is yours, but this is what your final piece should look like. And I'm going to decorate this guy a little bit, and then I will show you guys what all of my finished bag charms look like together.
And this is what my completed bag charms look like. I did make a couple of them. I think they're super fun to play around with. This is a perfect little crafting idea for kids if you want them to just go ahead and decorate the bag charms that you have already made. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to tag me in any videos or photos that you post of your bag charms. I would love to see what colors you chose and how you decorated yours. And that makes the last day of our 12 days of crochet tutorials. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you guys soon with another video.